Hi, and this is your first lecture for GD100. So we're going to dive right into some basics of graphic design principles, basic principles. So the first thing you want to consider is composition and page balance. So we're going to look at normal tendencies when we're placing content on a page. Most of you have had experience working, whether it's working in Microsoft Word or any other word processing or even some simple graphics software or page layout software. A lot of people tend to put all of their content in the middle of the page, and this has the unfortunate effect of creating sort of a funneling where your eye gets stuck in the middle of the page. And so the basics of page balance and composition that I want you to remember, and we're going to show you some images in the, all of our lectures are going to have a downloadable PowerPoint document or PDF document that you can flip through and see some examples of what I'm talking about. So what I'm talking about here is this unfortunate effect. So I want you to remember, picture a line down the center of your page, that axis line. You want to avoid that at all costs. You don't want anything to go down the center, right down the middle of the page. Now, this is not a hard and fast rule. Occasionally you'll see more classically designed typography kind of designed right in the middle of the page, nice and clean and elegant, right? So it depends on the sort of message that you're going for, but generally speaking, we do not want everything centered in your document. It's going to create, sticking in your eyes, and it's going to, your eye's going to get lost in the page. So the way that we, as designers, overcome this problem is by using a little bit more dynamic principles. Basically what we use is asymmetrical layouts. And so picture a grid on your page, just a simple grid, and there are some hot spots. So the human eye naturally looks at certain areas on the page as a hot spot. So for example, the bottom right corner. That's a very powerful spot. So the eye is going to naturally end on this spot, because if you're in a culture that reads left to right. If it's the opposite, if you read right to left, then it would be the bottom left corner. And then picture sort of a Z formation as we look at this page. This is basically the way that the eye reads across the page. And so we don't want all of our elements to be sort of stuck smack in the middle of the page. We want to use our grid to align elements following a balanced pattern to lead the eye through the composition. So the whole key to asymmetrical composition is using different elements to balance out other elements. This brings us to type basics. So when you're working on a grid, and we have different elements on a page, often those elements include typography. And so when we're sketching as graphic designers, we represent typography in different ways. Sketching out every letter is very time consuming. So often we'll represent body copy using lines. That would be medium spaced type, tightly spaced type, closer lines. And then to represent headings, often we'll do a box like that, sometimes a filled-in box to represent a heading, and then to represent an image, we do a box like that. So if you're talking in terms of composition, balance, and typography basics, we want to keep in mind the concept of hierarchy. And we'll talk more in the course about hierarchy later on. But if you have a bold header here and some light body copy, think of the type in terms of shape. And so this concept of type is shape. Balancing out the page, let's say there's an image on this side, that's going to be a strong visual element. So it's going to take more type on this side of the page to balance, right? So it's sort of a balancing act. You've got strong elements over here, strong elements over here. Another element that's very powerful is color. So if you picture this header as being a bright color, it's going to have more visual impact and therefore draw the eye more over there. So if you have a dynamic image, a photograph or an illustration on this side of the page, sometimes a header with some color in it will help to balance the page over there. So just in terms of very basic typography basics, hierarchy. Keep in mind where the eye is drawn. And if you are contrasting a header from a body copy type, you don't want your body copy to be like 11 point and your header to be 12 point. That's not good contrast. Maybe if your header is right about there in contrast to this size. So the percentage, there's no set percentage, but the percentage of contrast should be great enough to establish simple hierarchy on the page. The last thing that we want to talk about in this short lecture is going to be figure versus ground. And so a lot of times you'll hear people refer to the white space on the page as negative space. I don't like to use the word negative because it has a negative connotation. I like to use the term white space or even void space. So you have your white space on the page, and then you have your type and your image and different elements. So this becomes your figure and your ground. Now you can play with figure ground. Often you'll see the most basic one is sketch this out here. This is kind of crude, but if you see white type on a black background, that's a figure ground reversal, and you can play with that to create even more contrast. So keep in mind, something that's white on black has a very strong impact visually, and so it has to be contrasted. If I have an equal size black on white letter, this is going to draw the eye more. And so in terms of balance, color is very strong, figure ground reversal is also very strong. And so just keep in mind when you're designing a page, don't just look at the elements, also look at the white space. Keep in mind that figure ground relationship, page balance, staying out of the middle, and looking for this dynamic asymmetrical grid formation. So that's it for this lecture, and thank you for tuning in, and we'll have more to follow up with later on. Thanks.